Hey, this is Jack, and this video is called 5 Signs That You Are Just an Option to Him. So let's get right into this. If you're watching this right now, my imagination is that you are a woman who's interested in a more committed style of connection with a guy, and that you don't want to be an option, that you want to be a priority and a commitment. So here are 5 signs that he's not treating you that way. So the first is that you've got an inconsistency of communication from him, right? So maybe you hear from him and then maybe you don't hear from him for quite a while. So he's not showing any serious attention to setting up a more committed style of connection with you, right? So the connection is hot and cold, it's sporadic, maybe it's dropped off completely, maybe he only reaches out late at night or first thing in the morning to wish you a good day, but there's not real ongoing, deeper style of conversation that is happening with you. So if that's the case, the likely is he's not really that into it, right? As hard as that may be to hear and understand. The second sign that he's treating it more as an option than something that's serious is that there's been a significant drop-off in the level of contact, right? So this is not just inconsistent, this is now significantly reduced. So maybe you used to see each other regularly in person and you no longer do, right? Maybe he used to text you every day and he no longer does. Maybe he used to take you on a variety of dates. Now he just kind of does the same kind of date. Maybe he used to plan dates in advance, and now the spirit of it is actually, are you available spontaneously, right? There's nothing wrong with spontaneous dates, particularly if the guy is a spontaneous kind of guy, right? And perhaps you have a big spontaneous side to you. But there are certain things that also require a little bit of planning, right? Because you can only do them on a certain day, or that concert only happens on a certain 1 or 2 nights, or you're going to need to bring certain equipment, and so we need to plan this in advance. So if none of those styles of dates are ever happening, probably he's treating this more like an option than an actual priority. The third thing that has him treat you like an option is that he never organizes dates with you on what we could call the primary evenings of the week, right? Which for most of us, if we work a more Monday to Friday sort of life, we're talking Friday night and Saturday night, right? So maybe he never makes plans with you on a Friday or Saturday night. Maybe, you're in a different culture and actually it's, you go to work on a Sunday, right? So Saturday night isn't a thing. So maybe it's like a Thursday night, a Friday night, or it's a Friday night. But whatever represent sort of the times when people are most in weekend kind of mode, right? Maybe it's different for you. Maybe you work, on an oil rig, and so it's a completely different rhythm. So, feel free to adjust this for your situation. But really, it's actually his situation in this instance, right? It's in his life, which are the kind of prime slots for him, and what's happening with those if they're never offered to you, and or he never wants contact during those times. Maybe he's putting his attention as a priority on someone else, and that's actually good for you to be sober about. You don't necessarily need to create stories and assumptions about that. You could check it out, but at the end of the day, whether he's putting his attention on someone else or not, what we really need to know is, why is he not putting his attention on you? And if he's not putting his attention on you, maybe that's not going to work for you, right? Maybe, just maybe, you're going to want someone that is excited to spend at least one, if not sometimes both, of their Friday and their Saturday night with you. Or if they're not with you and they, maybe they're out doing something with their mates, that you're kind of in the loop, right? You sort of know, like, oh yeah, he's at that comedy show with his friends, and he sent me a picture, or he's shared something about his experience, or that he was getting ready for it, looking forward to it, or he's debriefed me. Like, you're included in his world. If you're not, the chances are he's unlikely to be making you a priority anytime soon. The fourth thing that suggests that you are an option and not a priority is that you have very little visibility into the other areas of his life. So Maybe when you guys get together, you have a fun connection. But he doesn't really talk to you about his family, doesn't really talk to you about his work life, doesn't really talk to you about his friends. Or maybe if he does share some things about them, you're not invited in any kind of meaningful way to participate in those domains of his life, right? Meaning you don't get invited to work drinks, you don't get invited as a plus one to events that he's going to, you don't get invited when his family's in town, you're not even part of the picture, you're not mentioned. When his friends are in town, you're not invited, you're not mentioned. You see, so it's almost like there's a wall around everything else in his life. Now, some guys are slower to invite people into their lives, right? Some guys are naturally more of a, I call it like the German Shepherd instinct, right? More likely to want everyone to come together. Some guys are more sort of siloed guys. So there is there's a spectrum of difference here. But you've also got to think what's going to work for you. And if you've been connecting with this guy for quite a bit and there's still complete walls around everything in his life, chances are he's not that serious about giving you a place in his life, or at least giving you a place in his life that would be meaningful to you, right? Because most of you are going to want to have a place in a guy's life, right? Where you have a window into the various parts of his life, where you are included, where you know what's going on, where he's interested to, invite you, have you participate, have you, share experiences, give your thoughts, all that sort of stuff, like a meaningful participatory role, rather than we just connect when we connect, and when we don't, we're not really that connected, right? That is one of the differences between a lovership and a partnership, right? In a lovership, it's a little bit more, I'll see you when I'll see you, right? And maybe that's going to be 3 weeks from now, or maybe that's going to be when I'm in your part of the world. And when it is, we might have a great connection. But in between times, I'm not going to feel an obligation. I'm not going to want the obligation to update you on my life, share what's going on, give you the highs and the lows. That's just not really what I'm available for, right? So in this situation, we would think of, in a lovership, you are more of an option because there's not really an ongoing commitment in a lovership, right? Maybe you have a sense, well, we've been, we get together every weekend or every month and we do a thing, and I want that to continue. But you sort of realize it's not the level of commitment that is implied in partnership, or that you ultimately want in partnership. So it's likely to come to an end at some point. And when one of you decides that it is that point, there's not too much of a comeback from the other person, right? Because it's sort of like, well, what did you think this was, right? We've only been connecting once a month. That's not like a day-to-day partnership that we've really been building. The fifth sign that you are an option, not a priority, is that you are never the first to know, right? You're never the first to know about things that are up in his life, right? And I'm thinking about this as highs and lows. So you're never the first person that he wants to let know when he's celebrating, right? When he clinches the deal, when he's sold his business, when he's got the promotion, got the pay rise, he's moved apartments, he's taken a new job, he's organized a work retreat and it's gone well, he's taken some time off, something happened with his daughter or his mother, and you're just never the first person to know, right? And in fact, he doesn't feel any obligation to let you know at all. So it might not be just that you're not the first person to know, but you're not really in the know, right? You hear about things when you get together, and he says, oh yeah, by the way, I took a new job 3 weeks ago. And you're like, oh, okay, so I guess it wasn't particularly important for him to share that with you. Now, he has a right to want to share with you whatever he wants to share with you. So I'm not making him wrong for that. I'm just inviting you to notice, is that going to work for you? Is it going to work for you to have such a side role in someone's life, and to always be, think of it just as a sort of visual, right? You only find out after 3 weeks. It's like you're so far behind the present day reality of his life, right? So that's an image. It's almost like he's over there, you're way back there. You don't get invited to be by his side, right? That's another way of thinking about the difference between an option and a priority, is how much are you by his side? How much are you in on his thinking? How much are you in on the highs? And maybe they're the lows, right? Maybe he lost his job. Maybe he didn't clinch the deal. Maybe he didn't get the book contract, right? Maybe his sales team has been downsized or right-sized. Maybe he just hasn't sold much recently, right? Or he's a writer and he's hit a block and nothing's really coming through. Or creatively, you know, his band is breaking up, or they're not going to go on tour, or, you know, the obvious ups and downs, disappointments, setbacks, frustrations that any of us has as part of our human experience. He's not in the business of sharing those things with you first, or even somewhat in, you know, real time, which I mean kind of like, you know, day of, day after, weekend after. If it's none of those things, you're just, you know, think about the news cycle, right? It's just going like this all the time. Now, sometimes it's too much, but ultimately, you know, it's today's news. That's what we're interested in. So if you're always hearing yesterday's news, last week's news, last month's news, at some point you got to say, I don't really occupy a place of importance in this guy's heart, right? Because when you're really in a guy's heart, he's likely to want to share those things with you. Now, he may not share them as enthusiastically as you might share them. He may not share them as readily as you might share them, right? Most of us guys aren't so good at sharing our emotional content as, on the whole, as women you possibly are. So, you know, there might be differences there, but I'm talking about absence versus presence, right? Is something happening, even if you might be working with him about ways that he could share that would feel better to you, versus like, is there just nothing that's really getting shared, or it's so after the event that it's fully baked. So I'll just share this with you quickly. I don't know if you can see some guys floating down the river here. This is beautiful. So I want to know, what's your experience? Do you have other signs that you have noticed having you be more of an option than the priority you want to be? Leave me a comment. Have any of these 5 that I've just shared with you, have they been part of your experience? Are you hearing things after the event? Do you never get to see him on a Friday or Saturday night? Do you never get to hear the highs nor lows of his life? Is most of his life walled off to you, so you're just not really invited to participate and be part of it? I would really love to hear your experience. Leave me a thumbs up or a +1. If you like this, please like it. And I want to invite you, if you haven't, download the He's Your Guy checklist. Super simple. Just click the first link that's beneath this video, and it's my way of giving you 9 simple steps. You can run any guy through it, see what his level of investment is. He's really got to be hitting at a 9 or an 8 out of 9, I think, to be a serious contender, to be tying up your relational energy. If he's not, you might want to think about downshifting or looking elsewhere, or just it clarifies to you, yeah, I thought that he's actually not really investing in this connection. So let's get you some clarity. Click that link beneath this video. Please leave me a comment. I'd love to know your experience. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.